Sex addiction withdrawal, is it real? Yes, but not in the way most people think. Here's the hard truth. Quitting porn or compulsive sex is one of the most difficult things you can possibly do, and it will make your life worse for a period of time. Nobody tells you that, but I'm going to, because I've lived it and I've coached men all over the world through it, and you need to understand why it happens so you know what to do when it happens. I'm Craig Pera, and we've empowered thousands of men to create healthy sexuality and great lives over the past 13 years. And I also personally struggled with sex, porn, and drug addiction. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. When we think about withdrawal, we think about heroin, alcohol, opiates, benzos, substances where your body goes into shock without the chemical. And that's not what's happening here. What happens is harder to see, but just as devastating, because from the earliest age, many of us men, then boys, learn to use pleasure to escape pain, stress, fear, loneliness, and shame. We discovered the most powerful drug we carry inside us, our sexual drive. And make no mistake, the male sexual drive is one of the most powerful forces in human nature. It's intoxicating, numbing, comforting, and it works too well as a coping strategy. That's why we're in the middle of this epidemic, because men are losing themselves to compulsive sexual behavior. And it's why stopping is so brutally hard, because you're not just giving up porn or sex. You're giving up your primary coping strategy that you've been using since a child to regulate fear, stress, and anxiety. And when you take that away, your life gets worse before it gets better, but I promise it gets significantly better. A quick point, I want to be clear about something: that sex addiction and porn addiction are not recognized medical diagnoses. The American Psychiatric Association rejected the label, and the World Health Organization instead classified compulsive sexual behavior as an impulse control disorder, not an addiction. And healthy sexuality experts strongly caution against using a 90-year-old "my addiction is a disease" model to treat something this complex. Literally, most of what you're doing, if you're using that model, there's a chance that it's actually making things worse. And they're right about one thing. What we often call withdrawal isn't withdrawal in the same way drugs or alcohol work. It's anxiety, stress, low self-esteem, and poor coping strategies. And the distress that comes when you suddenly rip away a bad habit that's been your go-to escape since childhood. So yes, it's real, but it's different, and that difference matters. I want to share with you two stories to illustrate the point I'm trying to make. I had a client who came to me from a traditional Christian treatment program, as many of my clients do. He had serious mental health issues, but his previous care, the counselors, they focused only on one thing: sobriety. Guess what? He cracked. His compulsive porn use, listen carefully, was literally the glue holding his system together. You take that away without building healthier coping skills first, and the whole house of cards collapsed. He was in withdrawal. The first thing we did was get him local medical help, because he desperately needed it. And instead of pushing sobriety initially, we got him there. We focused on self-regulation, controlling himself, self-care, building his self-esteem, stabilizing his mental health, tapping into his purpose, and that saved his life. Sobriety, healthy sexuality came later. And this time it was real, because it wasn't built on suppression, it was built on a foundation of strength. Story number two. Another client who's been with me nearly a decade. Highly successful, charismatic. Over the course of his career, he spoke to thousands of people. When his wife had a medical scare, a serious one, for the first time in his life, he had to go through something serious without his old coping strategy. And what happened? Panic attacks for the first time in his life. Crushing anxiety. The man who seemed unshakable was breaking down. Now, he's good, and he knew exactly what to do, because we train for these challenges in the mindful habit. The point is, this is a massively powerful coping strategy. When you take it away, the brain and body rebel. Not chemically like heroin withdrawal, but emotionally, psychologically, and physically. That's what sex addiction withdrawal really looks like. So yes, sex addiction withdrawal is real, not because your body is detoxing from a substance, but because you've lost the primary strategy you've used since childhood to regulate fear, stress, low self-esteem, and anxiety. And that's why guys relapse. That's why they spiral. And that's why it feels like life gets worse before it gets better. And you need to understand that so you can be prepared. But here's the good news. If withdrawal is about losing a coping strategy, recovery is about building new ones. And that's what I teach in The Mindful Habit. Self-leadership, emotional regulation, risk management, purpose, tools that you need that replace the old system so you can thrive instead of just survive. If you don't build those new systems, you'll always go back because life is hard. We train our clients that their worst triggers are ahead of them and their biggest challenges are yet to come. Why? Because life is ridiculously hard and you need to build those new systems. You don't just quit, you must transform. You must become the man that you were meant to be, the man that you know is deep down inside underneath this numbing, coping, and escaping. So if you're struggling with sex addiction withdrawal, if you feel like you're blowing a gasket, it's not because you're weak, it's because you've been surviving without the tools. That can change. Click the link below. You can book a strategy call with me. Let's build the systems necessary to create and sustain healthy sexuality and a great life. I'm Craig Pera. Thanks for watching.